Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Tim's News Explosion on this Monday the 10th of March 2025. We are live on the Wilms Front YouTube channel, the Wilms Front Rumble channel and my Wilms Front X account. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, the end of the Labor Day long weekend and the Moomba Festival. Thankfully, unlike last year, the parade wasn't cancelled today because of the heat. I would have thought that ex-tropical cyclone Alfred would put the warm weather here in Melbourne this week into perspective. It's going to be 30 degrees plus for the next few days, and it's quite warm in my studio. As you can see, my hair is already all messed up because of the the sweat. And now yesterday was the Birdman rally, which is always a hoot. So none of course, the makeshift planes, aircraft go very far into the river. But hey, on a warm day, there's nothing like jumping off into the cool Melbourne water. But unfortunately, it wouldn't be the Moomba Festival in modern, diverse Melbourne without some youth violence occurring.
Good evening. Melbourne's Moomba Festival has been rocked by a wild brawl involving dozens of teenagers.
Families were caught right in the middle of the Saturday night violence with police nowhere to be seen.
What, you bitch?
Caught up in the middle of mindless Moomba violence, an innocent man clings to his walker and attempts to steady himself as the kicks rain down.
Pussy! Bitch.
The brawl unfolded last night at what's supposed to be a family-friendly festival. Dozens of young children watching on. The entire attack was captured on camera, the teenagers making no attempts to hide their identities. The laughter in the video ringing clear.
Yeah, that's horrendous. There's sort of no respect for other people's safety.
That's just not acceptable. You know, these kids should know better.
It's not the first brutal incident at the famed Moomba Festival. An 18-year-old was left fighting for life in 2022, violence erupting as crowds headed home. 2 years earlier, police were forced to intervene again.
I would have thought that possibly there'd be more police presence down here because it happens every year.
It comes after Victoria's top cop declared it's time for a circuit breaker on youth crime, meeting with the state government twice this week to discuss bail laws.
It's our priority, it's certainly my priority, the Premier's priority and this government's priority to undertake that review, and we will be announcing something very shortly.
They're more worried about politics and the outcome of politics rather than the outcome of victims here in the state. We need action. We need legislation in the chamber.
And Rochelle Brown is at Birrarungma tonight. Rochelle, this clash has festival goers worried.
Mike, Victoria Police confirmed late this afternoon there were two key groups involved in this violent incident. At least one of those groups fled the scene before any officers could arrive. It has left police scrambling to find out who was involved. They are calling for any witnesses or anyone with any footage to come forward. It has also raised some safety concerns here on the ground at the festival. I must acknowledge that there was a number of police patrolling the area in the last half an hour or so, but people are still concerned and they want to see more boots on the ground on the remainder of the days for this festival.
And one thing of note, Channel 7, how are we supposed to be able to identify any of the suspects if you've blurred all of the teenagers' faces out. How is that supposed to work? And now, while Victoria Police might have been missing in action, they are on that youth episode of youth violence at Moomba on Saturday night. They have spent the last 8 months trying to come up with a way to charge the founder and CEO of Burgatory restaurant chain, Taya, for chanting "All Zionists are terrorists" at a pro-Palestine rally. So they've charged him with using insulting words in public. So this was reported on Friday evening. So probably a lot of you didn't even know that this charge actually existed. So using insulting words in public, so it was during a rally in May last year. So the punishment is up to 2 months in prison for a first offence and 6 months for 3 or more offences. I'm surprised this hasn't been used against any of the National Socialist Network members yet. So it is believed to be the first time that potential political speech has been deemed a criminal offence that breaches the insulting law. The charges are normally levied for using abuse or obscene language against police officers. The Allen government's proposed anti-vilifications expansion laws, the Anti-Vilification and Social Cohesion Amendment, that has stalled again in the Upper House Legislative Council because the Liberals won't support it unless the civil provision is changed to a normal, reasonable person test. And the Greens certainly have their reservations since they're seeing it used against pro-Palestine activists. So Taya told The Age he would fight these charges with everything I have. I've never supported the harming or killing of men, women, and children, no matter their faith or background. Standing against the loss of innocent lives is not just a political stance, it is a moral obligation. No innocent person deserves to die, and I'll fight these charges with everything I have. I will take this battle as far as necessary because speaking out against injustice is not just a right, it is a duty. Criticizing a regime that commits acts of terror is not a crime, it is a fundamental right, a cornerstone of democracy, and political censorship has no place in Australia. And going further down here, Federal Attorney General Mark Dreyfus, who is Jewish, said the label Zionist is used not in any way accurately. When critics use that word, they actually mean Jew. I think it was Gideon Rosner I saw who posted that 95% of Jews are Zionists. When critics use that word, they actually mean Jew. They're not really saying Zionist. They're saying Jew because they know they cannot say Jew, so they say Zionist or words such as Zio or Zio. Zeddy Lawrence, Executive Director of Zionism Victoria, said, given the overwhelming majority of Jews in Victoria and Australia, indeed the word were identified as Zionist, besmirching the latter is akin to painting a target on the former. And tragically, the spike in anti-Semitism on these shores, which has shamed Australia globally, is indicative of where misrepresenting the truth about Zionism can lead. Australian Lawyers Alliance spokesman Greg Barnes SC, who I do have a lot of respect for, even though he is a leftist, he's stood up for Julian Assange for more than a decade, and also stood up for the freedom activists during lockdown. Declined to comment on the Taya charges because the matter is before the courts, but said the offence was not normally used in this way. Generally speaking, that particular provision is designed to stop or deter people from using personal insults and swearing against others using offensive language. And it is usually directed at individuals, not groups. In the United States of Canada, where freedom of speech is substantially protected, there would be much greater reticence to prosecute because that speech could be seen as political. And it mentions here Victoria's proposed hate speech reform, which would extend protections to expand them from race, religion, and include gender identity, disability, sex, sexuality, has stalled in the parliament. And now Hashtag on his Instagram account, he posted the charge sheet. The accused at Melbourne on 27 of May 2024 did use insulting words with the hearing of a person in a public place, namely the crosswalk of Swanston Street, Melbourne, from Federation Square to Flinders Street railway station. He said, the Australian justice system is corrupt, racist, and for sale, and I have proof. When my home was firebombed, when my 2-year-old son slept above the flames, the police called out minor damage to a door. My business was firebombed. We remember that. There was that flash protest in Caulfield that evening, where actually Hashtag told them not to come. The attacker admitted he was paid $20,000 over the conflict in Palestine, and police buried the evidence. Brendan Fain, I don't know who he is, celebrated the attack, saying it excited him because it reminded him of burnt children in Gaza. He was never arrested or charged. I have been harassed, detained, falsely arrested, and silenced for speaking the truth, yet I am the one that has been charged. If you care about the truth, justice, and human rights, read this letter and share it. They want silence, give them noise. Now, saw that Avi Yemeni was happy. He said, posted on Friday, Hashtag has finally been charged. More to follow. So Avi Yemeni can't be counted as a supporter of free speech anymore. But if he was charged because of hurty words that he'd made in public, he'd be the first to say, Australia has fallen. Fascism has come to Australia. And I noticed that Sherry Markson tonight also praised the charges against Hashtag, and also called for Clementine Ford to be charged for her pro-Palestine anti-Zionism comments as well. And it's become clear that pretty much all of the prominent Jews on who would be the right don't support free speech when it comes to speech which, well, they argue that it endangers them, but obviously at the very least makes them uncomfortable. We saw Caroline Marcus, when she was filling in for Peter Credlin over the summer, dedicate 2 opening monologues to calling for Joel Davis to be charged over his address at the National Socialist Network protest on the steps of Parliament House with the Jews Hate Freedom sign. And we're going to get into later how the Australian Jewish Association has attacked the New South Wales Libertarian Party for not supporting the Australia funding the joint striker jets that some are used over for the IDF. But sticking for the time being on the continuing crime crisis surge here in Victoria, last week I brought to you that the attempted carjacking at a car wash was in my local government area of Frankston, Shiner's Jet Wash. I visited, they went past the business again this week, and still plenty of customers patroning the business, which is good to see. But Frankston City Council, this is the type of youth crime they have decided to crack down on.
3 boys from Melbourne's southeast have had their lemonade stand shut down by council because they don't comply with a 40-year-old Food Safety Act. They've been threatened with a $1,000 fine, and locals aren't happy.
When life gave Chase, Jager and Lincoln lemons, they made lemonade.
Thank you.
Hosting one last stall to say thank you to the Langwarrin community after council shut down their lemonade stand.
Yeah, it was pretty upsetting. I'm trying to save up for some basketball shoes.
Even the local CFA made an appearance to show their support.
I think it's awesome, trying to make a difference and earning a bit of cash.
The trio set up a few weeks ago selling homemade drinks and cookies, but a complaint put an end to their venture. One of the boys' parents was issued a formal warning from Frankston City Council referencing the Food Act of 1984, threatening a $1,000 fine if they don't stop operating the unregistered business within 7 days.
I was shocked. It took me a while to register what they were talking about. Just really disappointed.
It would cost the boys around $600 to register their lemonade stand, so today's will be their last. Neighbours say it's disappointing and are rallying for council to show some leniency.
We want community, and this brings people together, and it's really, really important. So I'm going to write to the council.
A petition to change the permit rules for minors has already attracted scores of signatures.
There needs to be some sort of tweak, I think, with the laws just to allow for this sort of stuff to continue.
Georgia Bennett-Murphy, 7.
Sorry, my microphone was off for a moment. So some snitch, some busybody, some Karen with no life has decided to write some angry letter to the council. And of course, a bureaucrat has decided to write this threatening letter. And this is often what happens. There just needs to be one complaint. Some person who's just a misery guts, oh, I don't like those kids attracting all those people into my neighborhood and selling this unregulated lemonade and sweets. That's just my impersonation of what some busybody, no life would sound like. But it's good that, and it's often the case that the rest of the neighborhood thinks it's great. And you heard that young boy there say that he's wanting to buy some basketball shoes. So wanting to be active outdoors, isn't that what we want kids to be? And this was the petition that was mentioned in the news item. Frankston City Council to legalise lemonade stalls for minors without a permit. So it's got 458 signatures. It should get a lot more. And it has been a tradition. Under our present law, minors need a permit to operate a lemonade stand. This might be helpful in regulating professional businesses, but the same laws can stifle the entrepreneurial spirit for young ones. In recent years, there have been several instances where children lemonade stores were shut down due to a lack of permits. Allowing minors to run lemonade stands without a permit can foster a sense of responsibility, business acumen, and social skills among them. Therefore, we urge the authorities concerned to redesign the laws pertaining to lemonade stalls. Let children learn, explore, enjoy this harmless venture free from needless bureaucrats' restrictions. Sign the petition to support cause of our future entrepreneurs. And now Nathan Conroy, who's the Liberal candidate again for the seat of Dunkley at the upcoming federal election, which we now know will be in May. He's on the Frankston City Council. So if I see him out and about at the shops campaigning, I'll say, you're still on the council. Are you going to change the permit regulations? That would I would encourage all locals in the seat of Dunkley to ask Nathan Conroy that, because Obviously, the Liberal coalition have promised at the federal level their own Doge, and certainly cutting regulations such as that. It should always start at the local level. And now, the Herald Sun, they have started to publish on their online section, Melbourne's local paper, a suburbs under siege section, because again, there's so much focus on the focus, it seems, of the people that the Allen government listened to is that we've got to think of the rights of the perpetrators. We can't have them in the criminal justice system because that'll set them up for a life of crime. Well, they're just continually being bailed to commit more offences. So that approach isn't working either. And our attention should be on the victims. And this got my attention because a lot of these home invaders, carjackers, they're targeting wealthy suburbs. And obviously Beck Judd, the wife of ex-footballer Chris Judd, has been quite vocal about crime in Brighton. But you've seen the usual suspects rubbishing what she's saying is just hysteria. This was in Malvern, which is in between Toorak and Caulfield. So this family, the Mansfields, spoke about how their 7-year-old son Henry has not slept a whole night in his bedroom after the family was subjected to a home invasion 3 months ago. It's one of the things that you really are scared of at night as a child, the boogeyman who can be a home invader. And this was something that David Crisafulli talked about, youth crime in Queensland during the last Queensland election, that kids are asking their parents, are the bad man going to return? So he goes to sleep with his parents or older brother, too scared to sleep alone after a group of teenagers armed with a machete entered their Armadale home. They were caught on the home's CCTV, jumping the fence before climbing through the laundry through a doggy door. They rummaged through around the kitchen before locating a handbag with the keys to Miss Mansfield's luxury car. This terrified her son Henry, who's in grade 2, and will take years to get over this frightening home invasion in December. She says it's the reason why the young family, including her 2 young boys aged 7 and 9, now consider selling up and moving homes. I'm not sure exaggerating when I say my son has not slept one night in his bloody bed. So this is what, although it can only last a half an hour, a home invasion, it traumatizes particularly children as well. How about thinking of them? All this, the youth your attention should be on is on the youth who are the victims. Jacinta Allen, she's continuing to talk about this bail law inquiry. There's also a talk of a machete ban. I mean, criminals are just going to ignore a statewide machete ban. And this reminds me of, remember Rishi Sunak when he was British Prime Minister, cracking down on they're called zombie knife crimes. That was the key to stopping violent crime across the UK. Naughty Design says, if only we had a Second Amendment. You're not allowed anything for self-defense in Australia, not even a baseball bat underneath your bed. And did any of you see Mark Knight's cartoon on the Herald Sun this week? It has these youths in hoodies where you can just see their teeth, but you can't see the rest of their faces there. I'm not sure if that's intentional. It is common that with some of these youth offenders, there because of their dark complexion. We don't know if it's a full ski mask or if it's just they're wearing just a regular mask and you can still see their eyes and their black foreheads. So the number plate says on bail, Victoria, the lawless laughingstock. I think that the number plate of Victoria, because it says the education state, I reckon it should just simply be out on bail. Naughty Design says those stabby things are the problem. Now, we had the New South Wales and Federal Police confirm this afternoon that the alleged anti-Semitic caravan full of explosives was a hoax, fake terrorism. In fact, New South Wales Police now acknowledge that they almost immediately knew it was fabricated. This is part of the press conference this afternoon.
Almost immediately, experienced investigators within the Joint Counter-Terrorism team believed that the caravan was part of a fabricated terrorist plot, essentially a criminal con job. This was because of the information they already had, how easily the caravan was found, and how visible the explosives were in the caravan. Also, there was no detonator. Today, I can reveal that the caravan was never going to cause a mass casualty event, but instead was concocted by criminals who wanted to cause fear for personal benefit. What organised crime has done to the Jewish community is reprehensible, and it won't go without consequences. There was also unwarranted suspicion directed at other communities, and that is also reprehensible. Those creating fake terror threats, including using anti-Semitism to elicit a desired response from law enforcement or the courts, face being charged for creating fake plots. And unfortunately for them, they will face the full experience, capability, and dogged determination of terrorism investigators.
And now Cauldron Pool this afternoon published their headline had the appropriate question: were Australia's anti-Semitism laws, this was the Criminal Code Hate Crimes Amendment laws, built on a fabricated terror plot? And we had the Prime Minister in New South Wales, Premier, in the aftermath, saying that this was terrorism. We had, of course, the coalition opposition, the Shadow Home Affairs Minister James Patterson, saying, why wasn't the Prime Minister, why wasn't the public aware of this alleged terror plot against the Jewish community? And as I mentioned to you at the start of the show, I was watching Sherry Marks, and before I came on air, God, it's getting so. It's literally her, because she's clearly rooting for Peter Dutton, because he's going to declare a anti-Semitism national emergency, basically going to adopt her and Alex Richkin 15-point plan to tackle anti-Semitism. So basically, at this stage, her show should carry a political authorization. Not surprisingly, she didn't lead with this terrorism hoax tonight, even though she was on the night on her evening show following when this was leaked to her newspaper, the Daily Telegraph. She was her usual thrill self, even though Andrew Bolt, the hour before, said this looks sus. Because remember, it was a caravan full of explosives that was there for a month, had a list of Jewish targets in Sydney, and then had a note, fuck the Jews. So basically it was a bit like a Jesse Smollett. They had their MAGA hats and said, this is MAGA country. So the fact that it was very clearly planted there, and now we have the confirmation that it was created by organized crime so they could use it as some sort of leverage to get a discounted sentence, like, I'll give up some information if you give me a discount on my sentence, and then I'll tell you about a plot against the Jewish community. Now, there actually hasn't been an anti-Semitic attack, vandalism, or arson for a month now, although there was the Liberal candidate for Wentworth, whose campaign poster had a swastika on her forehead and a Hitler moustache on it. But campaign poster vandalism happens a lot, and she's not the first candidate this to happen to, but because of the climate that we are in, I mean, swastikas have been drawn on, like, say, toilet doors for over 30 years by teenage vandals who think it's naughty to do. And also, Roe Knox accused the Teal member for Wentworth, Allegra Spender, of putting a campaign poster over a photo of the Babibi family, who, of course, were murdered by Hamas. And Allegra Spender threatened to sue her for alleging this, claiming that the poster was always there. But it did look weird that I'll see if I can bring it up. So Allegra Spender's poster looks like it is over the Babayas family. So while the person who put up, unless they were wanted to put the person who put up the photo didn't have anything to stick it up and was just sticking under the poster to make it stick. So this is just local campaign shenanigans, but of course it was, well, not surprisingly, it was Sky News that decided to give Roe Knox a platform to say all this. Now, we had last week the Australian Jewish Association, whose president is Dr. David Adler, who would identify as a conservative. I mean, he is a medical doctor and opposed the COVID vax mandates, particularly from a medical freedom perspectives. But his Australian Jewish Association most recently brought out Melanie Phillips to tour Australia. So I called this post by the Libertarian Party New South Wales unhinged anti-Israel smear, and said it was full of ignorance, misinterpretations and falsehoods. Now, this hasn't been taken down. We stand for a non-interventionist Australia First foreign policy, and we mean it. Many of you know we oppose Australia's involvement in Ukraine, but we also stand against foreign interference in Israel and Gaza. The reality is that Australian taxpayers are funding both sides of the same war while painting a target on our backs in the process. The Australian-Israel Technology Innovation Cooperation Agreement and Austrade's Tel Aviv landing pad both send Australian taxpayers money to Israel's war effort. Australia's defence budget further supports Israel's war program through participation in initiatives like the F-35, innocuously named the F-35, the US-led program backed by Australian taxpayers that provide billions of dollars in military funding to Israel every year. But if you thought your money was only going to Israel, you'd be mistaken. After being used to bomb Gaza. Your money is then sent as humanitarian aid to the survivors. Last financial year, over 60 million of Australian taxpayers' money was automatically sent to UNRWA. Think this is insane? Join the Libertarian Party. We will never support sending your money to prop up foreign wars that don't threaten Australian soil. And so the Australian Jewish Association X-account said, which genius did this and why? Very disappointing. We have no idea why Libertarian New South Wales would folk such fake BS for an anti-Israel pylon at this time. Amongst other consequences, it will severely piss off the Jewish community and others who support the defense of Israel. It might appeal to the neo-Nazi fringe and other anti-Semites, even though the National Socialists, this is me speaking now, even though the National Socialists have said that they are not fans of libertarianism because it's an individualist ideology and they are collectivists. I'll now go back to reading from the AGA. Be aware, Australia provides zero foreign aid to Israel. Look it up. There are Australian companies which have won contracts to provide some components to the Lockheed Martin F-35 Joint Strike Fighter jets, and Israel has purchased these via the US. It is commercial and of benefit to Australia. These initiatives reference and primarily about IT, biotech, and cybersecurity, not weapons. To equate this with Labor's foreign aid to Gaza, funding both sides, is incompetent, negligent, and implies a malicious motive. AGA has consulted our contacts in the Libertarian Party who do not share the view expressed in the post. Many of the comments from their own members and followers have been very critical. Whoever operates this social media has damaged the Libertarian brand, and corrective action is needed. So, in other words, shut it down. And they decided the CEO of the Australian Jewish Association. They have I assume he's a, I don't know if he's a paid position, but they've got a CEO. There's always a president and a CEO with all of these Jewish Zionist organizations. This was now the Spectator Australia is edited by Rowan Dean of Sky News, who of course is a Zionist as well. So it starts off by claiming that you'd expect right of centre parties to seize this moment united or at least stay focused. You'd be mistaken. So claiming that it's not us who are obsessed with a single issue. It's these parties on the right that are. So it references Jared Rennick's suggesting Israeli Mossad had infiltrated News Corp, tying it to a Daily Telegraph crew allegedly filming a Jewish man at a cafe whose owner has made remarks widely considered anti-Semitic. That is basically glossing over how News Corp tried to provoke anti-Semitic comments at that Cairo takeaway. And think about it, so going back to the article, think about a tiny nation fighting multiple wars, deploy its elite spy agencies fresh from operations like Hezbollah, the Beeper strike, the assassination of Hamas leader, to orchestrate a stunt in a cafe in a hipster Sydney neighbourhood, all while encouraging the media to film their agent. It's laughable. And so mentions James McPherson, deciding to dedicate 5 minutes to bagging Jared Rennick, who doubled down, tweeting out a list of accusations against the IDF and the Mossad, including one about an accidental sinking of a ship in 1967. The USS Liberty doesn't even bring himself to mention the sinking of the USS Liberty. There's lots of these accidents against allies that the IDF has attacked. Remember there the death of Australian aid worker Zombie Franken last year by an accidental IDF airstrike. And it goes further down here that, it says more concerning was their anti-Israel tweet laid on Thursday night from the New South Wales Libertarian Party account. And it says here that Australian companies won contracts worth billions to provide components of F-35 jets, which Israel acquires through the US. These commercial deals benefit Australian manufacturing companies, workers. Since when do libertarians despise capitalism? They're government contracts. That's not capitalism. And so it says that, they sound like New South Wales Greens rather than New South Wales Libertarians. So it goes on and on and on, and then goes on and then says that the battle is playing out overseas. The right overwhelmingly supports Israel as it fights its enemies of the West. However, there is a fringe rising in prominence of misfits like Nick Fuentes, grifter and Muslim convert Andrew Tate, the mentally unwell Kanye West. Candace Owens sounds possessed as she comes up with anti-Semitic conspiracies about breakaway Jewish groups from the 1700s. Tucker Carlson is more sophisticated. Careful never to say the crazy part himself. He instead invites Holocaust deniers and others to peddle lies to millions. Clive Palmer's new trumpet of patriots is unknown, but trumpeting Tucker's endorsement isn't a great sign. Today, multiple parties to the right of the coalition compete for a small pool of voters. However, opposition leader Peter Dutton doesn't carry the same baggage as Scott Morrison or Malcolm Turnbull. The parties must choose embrace fringe conspiracies or pitch serious vision to Australia. Weeks from a federal election with a chance to remove one of the worst governments in Australia history, this all seems like a very unnecessary distraction. And I should segue into that the result of the Freedom Summit last week, which was attended by the Libertarians, Gerard Rennick's People First, the Heart Party, and also Family First, has its first the first result of it is the Australia First Alliance. I'll tell you what, they'll be receiving first a letter of complaint from Jim Salim or Nathan Sykes of the Australia First Party, who think that they're the only ones who should be allowed to use the word Australia First. I mean, they went after the Australia First groupers for using Australia First. So there is going to be a joint New South Wales Senate Freedom Coalition ticket with the Libertarian Party, Craig Kelly, the lead candidate, then second the Heart Party, and then Gerard Rennick's People First. Obviously, the focus of Gerard Rennick's People First will be getting Gerard Rennick re-elected. And there is going to be a 2-for-2 swap between the People First and the Libertarian Party in Victoria and Queensland. So on their How to Vote card, going to recommend one Libertarian, two People First, and the reverse in Queensland. Now, Gerard Rennick hasn't responded to that Spectator Australia article, but I believe that he will. Did anyone watch Avi Yemeni attempt to destroy Gerard Rennick, who went on his Rebel News platform? Obviously, that was Avi's spin. Gerard Rennick certainly, I think, held his own pretty well. Though most of the time I don't watch any of Avi Yemeni's content. And now we also had I'm not sure what his actual position is in the Australian Jewish Association, Daniel Levchenko, I think that Luvenko, he's just known as Daniel on X. So said, neo-Nazis have evolved shockingly, I know. They now intentionally post mild comments that may appeal to ordinary people passing by who'd be appealing if they knew they were agreeing with a neo-Nazi. Vague comments about immigration, seizing on legitimate concerns about housing, casual mention of Jewish allegiance, or my favorite, asking questions, which are at their face absurd and do not require asking. There are even neo-Nazi accounts posting as news sources. He probably is referencing the noticer there, but being very careful not to pull out the swastika and let the mask slip. Say what you want about old-fashioned Nazis, white supremacists, Hamas, and anti-Semites. At least they were intellectually honest enough to admit it. Joel Davis responded, Australian Jews are freaking out because they're losing grip on the right-wing base and that National Socialists have become the voice of reason. Our talking points on the key issues of the day now being widely adopted. That's obviously Joel's spin there, claiming that we've become the voice of reason, even though Daniel there is basically called out what is the National Socialist Network strategy of basically trying to putting out all of these mainstream concerns to appear to the social media public as reasonable. Yet there is no way that that means that all of those people who would agree with those accounts on news websites, I believe that Hitler is the greatest man of the 20th century and the Holocaust didn't happen. And Joel is also, since he's been banned from X, busy philosophizing, say we're never going to tone down the Hitler National Socialist stuff. So although, well, Tom and Blair on the Sam Newman podcast can propose a more mainstream message, Daniel, I would say that the mask does come off pretty quickly afterwards but I know that Joel always likes to spin that his more moderated messages gets lots of traction as proof that National Socialists are have the most traction, or that whenever people are talking about things that we've been saying, obviously not Hitler National Socialists enough, they're taking our talking points. Well, you didn't invent stop mass immigration, for example. That's just my 2 cents there. And I will go to another Joel post. This should shatter that there's some sort of National Socialist Libertarian alliance, because this is Joel slagging off the Libertarian Party over its poor result in Western Australia. I'm hearing reports that the Stop Pedophiles Party, despite having zero media coverage or funding or brand recognition, got more votes than the Libertarians. A massive L for not only for the party, but for the ideology of libertarianism itself. The reality is this: nobody gives a fuck about small government. Yeah, they want free speech, but they also want the government to actually do what it's supposed to. They want the border shut, the criminals taken off the streets, they want pedos executed, and they want industry brought back to Australia rather than property bubble Ponzi scheme lapping as the economy. They want nationalism, they want law and order, libertarianism never expires, no one except a small fringe of nerds with gook wives. And when we launch our party, one of our signature policies will be reinstituting the death penalty for child rapists. So I'm glad to see that policy alone is already more popular than the entire ideology of libertarianism. Well, I don't think that, as I haven't looked up the policies of the Stop Pedophiles Protect Kiddies Party, but I don't think it's a National Socialist political party. And the Libertarians WA, I looked at their X account, it hardly had anything. So if you don't have a social media a game, let alone a ground game, of course you're going to do awful. I'm not sure if this is the first election. I think it's the first election where they're contesting a upper house proportional representation under the Libertarian Party name, because they can't use Liberal Democrats anymore. So I hope you enjoyed our West Australian election night live stream on Saturday night with myself, Stephen Berry, and Kyle Kutazi. So I'll start with the Legislative Council, since this is what Joel mentioned. So One Nation, which I know that the National Socialists actually spent a lot of time attacking the West Australian Party because of their third candidate on the upper house list, Parmijan Singh. Well, the One Nation party name, it's still, despite all of the MPs that have left over the years, the fact that it is a dictatorship by Pauline Hanson and James Ashby, the fact that One Nation have rehired as their campaign director a convicted rapist, Sean Black, to run their federal election campaign. They still have that. There's still a lot of normies who, if they're going to vote for a nationalist party, will vote for One Nation. So they're guaranteed at least one seat, as is legalised cannabis, as is Australian Christians. That is, this is going to be their first MP, because the quota is only 2.63% for an upper house of 37 for 4 years. So the independent grouping, they got half a quota. Animal Justice Party did really badly in Western Australia, only 0.3% of a quota. Sustainable Population is next down, Stop Pedophiles. Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party, they did really bad for a party which has representation in New South Wales and Victoria. And the Libertarian Party comes dead last with only 2.4% of a quota, 6,000 votes. So the Labor Party has 15 going to the majors, at least 15 elected. They'll most likely get 16th. The Liberals 10, most likely get 11. Greens 4 and Nationals 2. So Labor would have a working majority with the Greens. So 16 plus 4 is 20 out of 37. Now, what we did know on Saturday night was that the Labor Party had won a third term quite easily. So the seats that are still in doubt are Albany. So Tom Brough, the emergency physician, he'll be an interesting MP, given that he's a pro-lifer and also got a professional misconduct complaint because he asked whether the plus in LGBT plus includes pedophiles. In Dawesville, which is the Liberals' leader at the last election, Zach Kirkup's seat. Labor is ahead. A independent Green Socialist is ahead in Fremantle, very left-wing area, Kate Hullett. In Kalamundra, the Liberals are ahead. Kalgoorlie, Labor is ahead. Murray Wellington, the Liberals are ahead. In Pilbara, Labor is ahead. In South Perth, Labor is ahead. And in Warren Blackwood, National is ahead. The current count is ALP 41, Liberals 5, Nationals 4. So the Liberals so far have got a net gain of 3 seats, which includes Basil Zemplis winning in Churchlands, but only just, not the big swing. That there was swings in the outer suburbs for the Liberals. Well, obviously there was a correction since the McGowan slide of 2021. But if we look at the party totals here, so a primary vote of 41.7% for Labor, Liberals 28.4%, the Greens 10.3%, and the Nationals 5.6%. One Nation actually had a 2.5% swing to it, 3.8%. So the Liberals at the moment will be lucky to reach 10 seats, although they will be the official opposition. Mitch says, hope the federal right wing wins next in Oz to work with Trump instead of us. Well, we're going to get how the Trump factor and the tariff threats and policies is actually seeing a conservative vote collapse in Canada. But it's going to be our federal election. That'll be before the Canadian federal election. Now, Anthony Albanese, he wanted to call the federal election on Sunday after he had been at Roger Cook's election victory party to hold hands with him. But Cyclone Alfred, Albanese told Sarah Ferguson on ABC 7:30 Friday night. He was ruling out an April election. His government's focus is on people, not votes. Of course, Anthony Albanese had he'd been hoping for 3 years to have a go at being disaster prime minister. To contrast him with ScoMo, who of course went over to Hawaii during the Black Summer bushfires, and then, well, when Lismore was last flooded in 2022, it was flooded again. Thankfully, that ADF truck that flipped over, although there were 6 who were seriously injured, they're going to make a recovery, which is fantastic to hear. That there was one 61-year-old man who died because he tried to drive over floodwaters, which is, I mean, you can't fix stupid. I mean, there were police telling off some swimmers in Byron Bay. We don't want to go back to the COVID rules. I mean, if people are going to drive during severe storms and flash flooding, they're going to do it. You can't just fix stupid. But of course, and I saw the Sky News reporter having a go at the swimmers. Why are you at the beach? Well, why are you at the beach holding a microphone when there's and now it ended up not being a cyclone, so it was downgraded to a Category 1. So it was referred to as an ex-tropical cyclone, which was sort of a bit weird to hear. So that means wind gusts of between 90 and 125 kilometers an hour. So that means that Anthony Albanese and Jim Chalmers will have to hand down a budget on Tuesday, March 25th. So in 2 weeks. So the federal election will either be May 3 or May 10. I reckon that he will pick May 10 because that'll allow a full 2 weeks of early voting after Anzac Day on April 26. So otherwise there'd be obviously a suspension of campaigning just 1 week before. And obviously it can't, the April 20, the weekend of April 27 is not going to be, because of Anzac Day, is not going to be election day, nor is it going to be April 19 because that's Easter, and that's not going to be April 12 because that is Anthony Albanese, not calling it this weekend, has ruled that out, though that election day would have been anti-Semitic because it clashes with Passover. There was another news poll that was published, which had the ALP on 32% primary, LNP 39%, Green 12%, One Nation on 7%. Again, that despite all the other noise made by the Libertarians, the Jared Rennick, and also by the Trumpet of Patriots, it still looks like that One Nation is going to poll well. That's still going to be the protest party. I believe some will say that I'm blackpilling, that I don't think that Jared Rennick will be re-elected. I think that Malcolm Roberts will be re-elected, get the final Senate spot, because that's what happened in 2019 when, although Fraser Anning gained a lot of traction, Malcolm Roberts was easily re-elected. Now, of course, there's the Canadian general election later this year, and Donald Trump is the threat and now follow through of tariffs on Mexico and Canada has seen a huge anti-US sentiment sweep through Canada, which has seen a collapse in the Conservative Party of Canada's lead under Pierre Poilievre. He was basically going to win in a landslide. It's now significantly narrowed. I saw Billboard Chris, who is a dual US and Canadian citizen, claim, oh, it's not because of the tariffs, it's because Pierre Poilievre is not standing up against child mutilation. No, it's because the Donald Trump saying now implementing the tariffs and also saying he wants to make Canada the 51st state of America has all of the Canadian nationalism that has resulted has led to a surge in support to the Liberal Party of Canada, its left-wing party. Justin Trudeau probably thinks now, I should have stayed on now. Now, the Liberal Party of Canada, its members elected as his successor, a former governor of the Bank of Canada, its Central Reserve Bank, whatever you want to call it, Mark Carney. So he is moderating the climate policies. He's saying they're going to get rid of the carbon tax, which is also that's what Pierre Poilievre has a lot of his campaigning has been against. So he's lost that now. He certainly seems, even although he's a progressive globalist, he seems already much less annoying than Justin Trudeau. And the recently re-elected progressive conservative Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford. So this is after he's been re-elected, has now decided to implement his own, well, they're not specifically tariffs, more like sanctions against the United States.
And as the exclusive wholesaler, American brands will no longer be available in LCBO catalog, meaning other retailers, bars, and restaurants in the province will no longer be able to restock U.S. products. This is an enormous hit to the American producers. Every year, the LCBO sells nearly $1 billion worth of U.S. wine, beer, cider, seltzers, and spirits, including more than 3,600 products from 35 states. As of today, every single one of these products is off the shelves. Also, starting today, all US-based companies will be banned from taking part in government procurement. Every year, the province and its agencies spend about $30 billion on procurement, alongside our more than $200 billion plan to build infrastructure. US-based businesses will now lose out on tens of billions of dollars in revenues. They only have President Trump to blame. I'm also urging all 444 municipalities to do the same, and I'm thrilled to see some are already stepping up. For example, Mayor Patrick Brown in the city of Brampton and many other cities. As part of this government-wide procurement ban, we're going one step further. We're ripping up Ontario's contract with Starlink. It's done, it's gone. We won't award contracts to people who enable and encourage economic attacks on our province and our country. Alongside federal tariffs and the measures my fellow premiers are bringing forward, this Team Canada's opening response. We also need to be ready to dig in for a long fight. We need to be ready to escalate using every tool in our toolkit. That includes surcharges or even outright restrictions on the critical minerals and electricity we supply to the United States.
So the tariffs on Canada that Trump has implemented is a 25% tariff to nearly all goods imported from Canada, with a lower 10% tariff on Canadian energy exports. And although he has Trump, because he did see the US markets take another tumble, has decided to defer until at least April 2, the the 25% tariffs on that go into US automaking. So after backlash from the automotive industries. Look, my personal opinion is, I've said this before, I'm a free trader. Tariffs, they hurt your own country, primarily, but Trump, he's already, when he's implements and even threatens these tariffs, the economy takes a tumble, and that's what he said. Said that he was going to end inflation and usher in a ultra prosperous economic conditions again. I do think that he should just slow things down, particularly on the tariff front. And you saw that Doug Ford went after Elon Musk's Starlink as well. So of course, Doge is still proceeding full steam ahead, and I have no problem with Doge. In fact, I think that it needs to cut deeper. But yeah, even if Trump believes that tariffs are economically beneficial, it is hurting the Conservatives in Canada, and so that's obviously, like, maybe Trump doesn't care. Maybe he doesn't want a friendlier government up in Canada. But I do find it weird that there are some Canadians who are liking what Trump is doing to the country. It should always be your country first. So if you're Canadian, Canada first. If you're an Australian first. This is why I don't like him. I hope that it doesn't follow through on the tariffs on our aluminium and steel. Because obviously that'll hurt the United States the most, but it'll also hurt us. That's a 25% tariff. Malcolm Turnbull, when he was Prime Minister, negotiated an exemption, though I wonder if Malcolm Turnbull seems to have sabotaged Anthony Albanese's chance at an exemption after he went on Bloomberg to attack Donald Trump's his trade and defense policy as benefiting China. And so they, of course, got off to quite the bad start, Turnbull and Trump, over the phone call where Trump didn't want to honor Obama's agreement to take some of our illegal immigrants, and he posted on X that it was a dumb deal. So Trump on Truth Social hit back today. Malcolm Turnbull, the former Prime Minister of Australia, who always leading that wonderful country from behind, never understood what was going on in China, nor did he have capacity to do so. I always thought he was a weak and effective leader, and obviously Australians agreed with me. Now, Trump has also suspended military aid to Ukraine. So apparently the fact that Zelensky, he was pretty clear to Trump and J.D. Vance when he was at the White House that he didn't believe in negotiating a peace with Putin because he couldn't trust him. The United States is being blamed for Russia's most recent military attacks in Ukraine. That's apparently the US's fault, even though it's supposed to be Ukraine's war. And the latest from the European leaders is to hypothesize about conscription, i.e., bringing back conscription into European countries. So this is what the Latvian president, Edgars Rivgas, has said on Sunday. And now, I'm not sure if you've seen this map. It was shared by Dr. Eli David, who was one of the COVID freedom doctors. He's from Israel, so of course he supports Israel's war against Hamas, but he's a Ukraine skeptic. He shared this percentage of citizens willing to fight for their country. So Ukraine at 62%, Russia at 59%, Turkey at 73%, but Finland, right next to Russia, which recently joined NATO, at 74%, but Sweden, which recently joined NATO as well, 55%, Norway 58%. Look at Germany, 18%. Poland, it's significantly higher at 47%. France, 29%. Great Britain, 27%. Italy, 20%. Austria, 21%. Czech Republic, 23%. Romania, 38%. And Romania, they suspended their presidential election after the first round, where is described as pro-Russia President Kalin Georgescu, because of a supposed Russian disinformation. So now he's been barred from running in the rerun. So we've got to be undemocratic to save democracy. Now, last week I brought you that Claire Lehman of the intellectual dark web publication Quillette has been going on this X rampage, saying that that Trump is betraying the rest of the Western world, and the MAGA-tards don't understand why we need to protect the international rules-based order. She's been joined by another intellectual dark web personality, the original studio boy, as Katie Hopkins calls them, Brendan O'Neill, who wrote in The Australian, which of course is pro-Ukraine. And I'll try to impersonate his pompous voice. Ukraine is to the batty right what Israel is to the mad left. Move over, Islamophobia. There's new bigotry in town. Ukrainophobia is the prejudice to chew of the right-wing hotheads on the internet. What a bunch of crap. I wouldn't go as far as Tim Pool and say Ukraine is the enemy of Australia, but and I wouldn't say that Israel is the enemy of Australia, but Ukraine should fight its war. Israel should fight its war. I mean, good luck to both of them. I'm certainly not pro-Russia or pro-Hamas. This is, of course, the neocon. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists or you're with the dictators. But yeah, Brendan O'Neill, I don't think he's ever gotten out of his studio or out of his keyboard. He's one of the most pompous British commentators. Spiked is sort of the original sort of Quillette, sort of this. It also wants to be just like sort of counter to the right wing for the hell of it, it seems. And now, staying in the UK, Reform, he was leading in all the opinion polls until it appears to be on the path to self-destruction. There is now a civil war with Rupert Lowe, the MP for Great Yarmouth, has been suspended as a Reform MP after he gave an interview to the Daily Mail criticising the governance of Reform UK, which is a corporation which is majority controlled by Nigel Farage, led by a messiah. And so Nigel Farage, because of his ego, and he was willing to blow up UKIP because he didn't. It went in the direction he didn't like, particularly the fact that Tommy Robinson was hired as an advisor. So now Reform UK, it's through its social media accounts, claims that Rupert Lowe has been reported to the police for allegedly threatening against its Muslim chairman, Zia Youssef, and that he was also under investigation by Reform for claims of bullying within his parliamentary office, 2 female staffers, and also they claim that he had to be restrained from attacking a Labour MP at Westminster. So Rupert Lowe has denied all the allegations, and this might have something to do with the fact that he has been smeared in response to his criticism of Nigel Farage and Reform governance. Some would also argue he wasn't right to raise it in the media, but he said that he basically hasn't been able to have dinner with Nigel Farage for 6 months, which there's only 5 of them. So the Reform 5. So how the hell does that happen? Rupert Lowe, he said, "I've been betrayed more times than I care to remember, but never by people I've called friends. It's not a pleasant feeling, to be entirely honest. Business, football, politics, dirty games, all of them. I've always tried to surround myself with decent, honest, fair individuals who I feel I can trust. Loyalty to those people has not always come cheap, costing me my job on more than one occasion. That is something I would not change. Of course, I'm not a politician. I'm 67. I'm fortunate enough to be able to financially support myself and my family. My wife thinks I'm mad to trudge around this little wonderful corner of Norfolk talking about bins and business rates. I love it. I genuinely do. Give me a heated argument with Canterra's local councillors over mojos on the beach any day. It's the honour of my life to be the MP for Great Yarmouth. Yes, I've been outspoken on issues such as immigration, rape gangs, deportations, the rabid way in which our country is changing. And yes, that has not been appreciated by some in Reform. Let me be clear, I do not care or say what I believe is right, even if that upsets certain egos." And also said, "I've asked reasonable, constructive question of Nigel Farage and Reform's leadership following months of pushing for progress behind closed doors. The day after, I've had a knife in my back over false allegations, whip suspended. That tells you everything I need to know." So Rupert Lowe, he had a surge to become Reform's most popular MP because he was talking about these concerns that British nationalists have had, that Nigel Farage has been too timid in addressing particularly mass deportations, and because the fact that Nigel Farage handpicked a Muslim businessman, Zia Youssef, to be the party chairman. Nigel Farage he has said previously that we should just be nice to Muslims so they don't turn on us, basically. And obviously, Nigel, he would have started to resent Rupert when Elon Musk suggested that that Rupert should be the leader of Reform. But the thing is that Nigel Farage knows that Rupert Lowe is a much bigger threat to him than, say, Tommy Robinson. To use what Nigel Farage would probably think of Tommy, is not some just working class pleb. I mean, Rupert Lowe is a successful businessman who is actually doing the job as an MP for free. So he's not taking a salary, unlike Nigel Farage. Rupert's been a merchant banker like Nigel, so they come from the same sort of background. So I think this is why Nigel has really decided. Well, it's either. I mean, who else would be digging this out? And Richard Tice's girlfriend, Isabel Oakeshott, I made this really nasty rant on Talk TV saying that, Rupert's just he's become an MP and he thinks that he's the greatest thing in the nation. He's getting an ego like all the other MPs who think they can be Prime Minister. Really, really nasty. And we know that she's a proxy for Tice and Farage. Really, really nasty, as Donald Trump would say. And this seems to have been the final straw for many British nationalists who have been disappointed with Nigel over many years, but saw that Reform was the best nationalist vote at the last general election. They didn't like how Ben Habib was shafted as deputy leader of Reform. He's just one of many who've basically been shafted by the corporation. It was set up most likely as a corporation, so the members couldn't take it over like with UKIP. And what will Rupert do? It seems that there is irreconcilable differences. Nigel has basically said, even if the allegations is cleared, then he probably won't be accepted back into Reform. I never said, Ron, that I thought Farage was a nationalist. I said that nationalists were backing him. But I think, sadly, even if, say, if Rupert and Ben did decide to go to UKIP, which I know that Tommy Robinson's friend, who I've interviewed on Wilms Front, Danny Roscoe, is a member of. I don't know whether they'd try and build back up UKIP, or they'd create another party. I know the Homeland Party wants them to come on over. But I don't know if they'd accept Ben Habib, given he's half Pakistani, because they are pretty hardcore, the Homeland Party. But sadly, even if Rupert did go it alone, I think that although Reform would certainly, its vote share would probably collapse significantly, they'd still get more votes at the next general election than whatever party Rupert is in. Nigel has said that he wouldn't have got his seat without the Reform brand, though Rupert, he did pretty well to win his seat, which of course he bankrolled personally. So I would say that the only MP who owes his seat to Nigel Farage and Reform is James McMurdoch, since he was a papered candidate. Nobody really knew who he was before he was an elected MP. So yeah, sadly, like with One Nation here in Australia, despite all the history of One Nation and Pauline Hanson, they still get the most votes from those who have nationalist tendencies at election time. The same is going to be in the UK with Farage and Reform. The same with when he was with Brexit, predecessor to Reform, and when he was in UKIP. So this is the sad thing, that although you can try really hard as a micro party, and this is what Corey Bernardi found out when he started Australian Conservatives. It's just people voted for Pauline Hanson's One Nation as well. And now there's an upcoming event in Victoria on a Sunday, 23rd of March, the Small Parties Forum by the Australian Jewish Association, which the Libertarian candidate for Goldstein is actually attending, David Segal. I'm not sure if he's Jewish. So Warren Pickering, the lead candidate for One Nation in Victoria, again, I should think about having him back on Wilms Front as well. And Family First's lead Senate candidate Victoria, former Victorian MLC Bernie Finn. I should have him on Wilms Front for an in-depth interview. And I didn't even know the Freedom Party was registered at the federal level. I don't know if Morgan C. Jonas is running at the federal level. Obviously, Morgan Jonas, being Jewish, friend of RVM, and he probably wouldn't have liked what the Libertarian Party of New South Wales said, so I don't think that he'll be hitching a ride with them this federal election. So Mitch says, Yeah, I don't take kindly to foreign people genociding whites here as they genocide browns in the Middle East. Really? Well, there's been a genocide of Christians in Syria under the new Islamist regime, also in Nigeria, and also in the latest unrest in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And it was refreshing to see Dr. Stephen Shivara, who's a Monday night panelist on the Bolt Report, say that the most persecuted minority in the world is Christians. It's not the Muslims, it's not the Jews, it's the Christians. And this, of course, has been forgotten post October 7. So we've had particularly Labor politicians say that we condemn both anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. What about Christophobia? Remember ISIS, when it was going on its rampage throughout the Middle East, they weren't targeting Jews, they were targeting Christians, particularly in Syria. The Coptic Christians in Egypt, after Mubarak was toppled in the Arab Spring in 7/11, they were persecuted, had their churches burnt. Andrew Sedra, the lead pastor at the name of his church escapes me for a moment. Echo Church, that's what it is. So he spoke about growing up in Egypt. He and his family basically risked their lives to go to church every Sunday, which is when you. This is what affects so many Christians in Africa and the Middle East, and also in China as well. So Pope Francis, speaking of Christians, is hanging in there. Popes, they tend not to just roll over and die. They tend to fight for as long as they can. Pope Francis, he released a audio message because we had Ash Wednesday, last Wednesday, the beginning of Lent. Marco Rubio, as a Catholic, had the cross on his forehead during a media interview. Apparently, he was called ridiculous for having that on his forehead, yet they wouldn't say the same thing about a Hindu, a administration official having a red dot on their forehead during a media interview or press conference. So thank you all again once for your company and support. Remember, I cannot do Tim's News Explosion, Wilms featured interview programs, and also a Unshackled election night coverage like we did on Saturday night, and which we'll be doing again for the federal election, whatever Saturday is in May, without your support. So please consider supporting us. You can either do so on Substack. You can take out a membership, $5 per month, annual $50 per year, or founding member $500 per year. That's where also our Unshackled Productions archive is now, and also where I send out email alerts for upcoming Unshackled productions such as Tim's News Explosion. So if you're a subscriber, you'll get an email alert as well. Check your spam folder. And also you can take out a premium membership on the unshackled.net, still home of our articles and the Unshackler Awards. Bronze $5 per month, $50 per year. Silver $10 per month, $100 per year. Gold $25 per month, $250 per year. Platinum $50 per month, $500 per year. And I know I promised last week there'd be new fresh report from Tiger Mountain, but because I've been so focused on the WA election, I haven't got around to it yet, though Richard is being very patient with me, which is uncommon for him. He's normally on my case about new reports. Linda Hunter says, as I said, what is the good of France when you see disfollowing of the repaired Notre Dame, gay as a kookaburra and crap? Don't forget the various priests being beheaded, attacked the machete attacks there tend to sadly target priests. It's absolutely abhorrent there. Now there'll be no report, no Wilms report on RCR this week, but I will be back on RCR's breakfast program with Paul Brennan next Tuesday morning. I was from the RCR website. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you so much again for watching. Remember, if you can't financially support us, please share. Make sure that you're subscribed, click the bell for notifications, leave a comment down below because it all helps with the algorithm. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.